Okay. And we'll just give it a minute or two to get some of our book lovers on with us. Things. So perfect. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started.
I'm good.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How have you been?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful as always. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being on with me tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, for all who are out there watching us, welcome, 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 book lovers, to Lit Convos with MP. And yes, you guessed it. I am the MP in Literary Conversations with Madam President. My name is Tangela Fleming, for those of you who don't know. But for those book lovers who have been following me, you know how I do. Once a month, I always bring an author of my choice, generally a African American author on. Generally an author who is basically an indie author, but nonetheless a new author. And I allow them to come onto my platform and showcase to the group their recent book. And we just dive into it in dialogue about the backdrop to the book. So I'm just excited for this month. My bridge book that I have selected is from a young lady that I have truly enjoyed a journey of getting to know. Just a great lady all the way around, classy, cultured, educated. You know, I just learned so much from her, and I just thank you. You know, thank you, thank you, thank you again.
My pleasure.
So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce author Nicole Scott. Thank you, lady, for coming on and discussing this month's book selection, The Elephant in the Room. So before we dive into the book, because I know a lot of people like the title alone, you know, you just have so many thoughts about, you know, the elephant in the room, and what all it could mean. But before we dive into the book, I just want to thank you again and welcome you onto my platform. And I'd like for you to just share with those who are joining us on tonight a little bit about yourself. Tell them about yourself.
Okay, I am Nicole Scott, and I have been writing for quite a while, just for fun and leisure. And then I began ghostwriting for other people, and I decided, oh, I have a really good story I'd like to tell. So then I wrote a book in 2018 and published. And after that, I just started aligning myself with like-minded women, positive, forward-thinking women, women who have been on a healing journey of some type. And Dr. Shalanika Clues, who is a personal friend, gathered some women together and started speaking to us about how possibly telling our stories could help others toward their healing journeys. And that's what culminated in The Elephant in the Room, Real Stories from Heroic Women. 15 authors contributed, and that's how it happened. And that's kind of what I'm enjoying doing these days, writing for people, writing for myself, journaling and things like that, just to make sure that I continue on my therapeutic path toward healing and being my best self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm on that journey with you. So, but we're going to go ahead and dive into the book. And as always, you know, before we dive into the book and we talk about the book, I like to read the synopsis for those who are following us and listening to this broadcast. Definitely feel free to share it, and also we will be taking questions. So if you guys, have some questions for the author, feel free at any given time to put them in the comment section. And when we get to that part, I'll just read those questions to her. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and read the synopsis to this book, The Elephant in the Room. And it says, get ready to gain healing from these heroic women who have accomplished so much after their trials. It's okay to talk about it. It doesn't matter if you are rich, poor, Black, white, young, or old. Everyone deals with challenges at various stages of the human experience. Our stories highlight journeys of strength and grace in enlightening, impactful, and inspiring ways. The compelling stories of 15 successful heroic women who disclose their heart-wrenching experiences are intended to tear down barriers of guilt, shame, or fear by sharing details of how they overcame a myriad of obstacles. The elephant in the room will not only help women who are facing similar situations, but will motivate anyone who is struggling with a personal challenge. These stories will inspire readers with triumphant messages of encouragement throughout the pages of this book. This collaborative project was created to promote self-awareness and self-determination through candid depictions of individuals walking in their purpose towards healing. Readers seeking clarity and guidance while navigating through challenging times will be encouraged after reading The Elephant in the Room. So with that, we're going to just dive into the book. We're going to get into it. And like you said, there were 15 authors that contributed to this book, basically an anthology. How was that experience?
It was really enlightening for me to find out about all the varieties of experiences that people had that they really hadn't talked about with others. And when you hear these things, you know that they're common themes with women of all races and all backgrounds. And you think, wow, if we could tell our story, maybe we could just reach some people who have similar experiences. So being selected to participate in that group was an honor because we have all these different women, as the introduction indicates, they're successful women. We have several doctors, we have several other working professionals who have had experiences that you wouldn't imagine just looking at them. And that's why we felt it was imperative to tell our story so people could say, oh, that person looks like me, that person's like me, or that's not someone I expected to have gone through that, both extremes, so that they could know they're not alone. And we need to start talking to one another and encouraging one another in ways that do foster healing, no matter what they're healing from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And that's something that I've always shared, like books that, I enjoy the most are self-help books, self-healing books, self-discovery books, books that bring us to a place of completeness, mind, body, and spirit. So this book definitely is one of those books, and like you said, with the different ladies that contributed to this book, you wouldn't just stop to think that these are the types of stories that they have. And
Absolutely.
so, that in itself is something that is encouraging, and that's one thing I can say about me, my life's passion, and it's my purpose. Those who know me know that I'm very passionate about women, especially homeless women. And one of the questions, just in my experience of working with homeless women, because I've worked with them ever since I've been like 17 years old, But I, would ask people, when they discover, what I do. Have you ever had a conversation with a homeless woman? And majority of the time they'll say no. But my whole thing is think about it. Because you just never know who you are friends with, who you are co-workers with, who, you just never know if you don't just sit down and talk with that person and they're open enough to just tell you their story. I mean,
Right.
a lot of women have gone, women of color, because that's where my experience comes from. Not to leave anybody else out, but, my experience, and I have, in this journey come across so many women who have gone through so many things, but then to look at them, to look at the outside of them, their accomplishments, where they are, you would never think that this is where she came from.
Right. The saying is always, you don't look like what you've been through.
Absolutely.
I think society's tendency to rush to judgment when
Right.
they hear about these things and not delve into what happened to create this thing
Right.
is problematic. So one of the goals of this book is to just really let people know, now this is a recurring theme among women, among Black and brown women. These things are happening regularly and they're being ignored.
Yeah.
And we're not being helped in a way that we can help others or we can re-enter society and contribute in healthy, happy, helpful ways.
Absolutely.
And so that was one of the goals of this collaborative project.
Absolutely. And that's one of my plights, like you said, being able to come up with ways to pour back into and everything. But in the book itself, when it comes to the actual cover of the book, how did the cover come about? How much of a contributing contribution did you make to the cover of the book? How did the cover of the book come about?
So Dr. Clues, who spearheaded this project, was intentional about involving us in every aspect of the project, including the cover.
Okay.
So we were able to look at possible titles, vote, select a title that we thought was best aligned with the content. We were able, once we got with the selected the title, then we knew we wanted an elephant. We knew we wanted to have visions of successful professional women. And we also knew that we wanted to give some indication of what types of topics were going to be discussed. So everyone contributed equally to the cover, to the title, and we really were able to be actively involved in every aspect of the project. So I really have to say kudos to her because it was her project and she took the approach that she wanted, buy-in and inclusivity and input and all of those things. So yeah, it was definitely, that aspect was a collaboration as well.
Awesome. And like you said, on the cover of the book, it does speak volumes and everything, as far as what is actually inside of the book, some of the different topics that are touched up on: domestic violence, abandonment, mental health, which is a big one.
Yes, huge.
Yeah, divorce, single mother, which is a topic, one of the chapters, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get into the book. We're not gonna get into the whole book because we want them to, pick the book up. But we're gonna jump into it and talk about a little bit about it. The chapter, like I said, is an anthology. Chapter 9. My molestation healing journey.
Right. So my previous book talked about the aftermath of being molested, and this chapter focuses more on what took place in order to catalyze my healing. So what happened to just push me forward to understand that yes, this happened. You may have triggers based on what happened, but it's time to put in the work to start healing from it so you can talk about it with others, so you can make parents aware of the signs, so you can talk to, uncles, aunts, people who may not be paying close attention to these things, and try to maybe see these things before they actually happen. So the big part of my healing journey was being able to talk about it. And as I talked about it, I learned that I wasn't alone. And as I learned that I wasn't alone, I started thinking from a more solutions oriented standpoint rather than the typical pity party that we have. Once you hear these statistics, 1 in 3, 1 in 4, but once you start talking to real live people, and you get in therapy and you're surrounded by other people and you hear their stories and you can compare your story to their stories, and you can cry together, you can laugh together, you can heal together. And I just talked about the therapy, sharing my stories with men and women who had similar experience. It just promoted a sense of fellowship and self-discovery that made me be able to speak freely about it to anyone who would listen, not in a way that this happened to me, oh, poor me, this, that. No, this is something that happened, and this is where I am as a result of what happened, not because of it, but in spite of it. I still flourished. I still am a loving, caring person. I still am willing to talk to anyone about it, man, woman, or child, if needed. And I think that the shame and the self-blame that's usually associated with rape or molestation or any form of sexual assault tends to mute us in a way that we can't help ourselves or help others. And so
Absolutely.
that's basically what I talked about, what happened to me, and then what happened to help me start unpacking all of those repressed emotions so that I could move forward with my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it, that chapter, chapter 9, because I did read your book, your first book, and actually you came on my platform and we discussed it,
Yes,
and everything. And I did learn a lot from it. And it was impactful. And one thing, like you said, when it comes to the different traumas that you have experienced in your life, and you are open enough, and you put yourself out there to um, seek help, professional help,
yes,
you know, um, then that's when you get to the other side of through. And like you say, being in a position to open yourself up and get to the other side of through, you realize you're not the only one, because that's when you and I had good dialogue about the U2 movement and
right.
everything. Um, and that book in itself, like I said, it was so impactful. And I told you I saw that book um, in schools, being taught,
Yes,
and so, but we'll talk about that. But like I said, that's what I visualized for that book, because it was um, very impactful to me and everything, and I did learn a lot from it. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
absolutely. And also your
Chapter 12.
chapter 12, and it's so funny. Chapter 12, being a single mother, um, was never the plan. And I just a couple of days ago um, was having a conversation about, I'm not a biological mom,
Right,
but I have a whole bunch of babies that
right,
I
right,
know love them some me,
right,
you know, but they're nonetheless babies,
right.
you know, and in the conversation that I was having with one of my girlfriends and everything, because I'm really passionate about children being children,
Right. Being
and
able to be children.
being able to be children, and it's like we're in a society now so microwave, and it's just like everybody wants to be their child BFF, and
Yeah,
and I know families come in all different. I,
right. We have all these different family dynamics, but there is a lot of there are situations in which you see people living vicariously through their children and wanting a relationship that they think is normal based on what they had that they thought was not normal. And so in doing that, you're trying to navigate from an unhealthy place because you didn't get the healing and the therapy that you may have needed at some time. So, as far as this chapter is concerned, I saw things growing up, Tangela, and I said, I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I saw people in my family have kids with different women and just not be there for them. And I had an opportunity to observe it. It was never normal to me. I didn't understand it. And so for me personally, I made it my business not to get pregnant. And then at 39, I was married and pregnant. And I had to sit and think about the likelihood of me being a single parent. And, statistically, it's very likely, and ultimately it happened. And then I had to reflect on my childhood and all of those situations that I saw when I was like, I'm never doing that. And that's why they say never, because there are things that you don't have control over. And then when it happens, you just have to pivot mentally, financially, emotionally, and just try to be the best parent you can be under the circumstances. I struggled with that, and I wanted to try to convey my struggle so that individuals who suddenly wake up and they're raising their children alone can understand, yes, there's no single parenting for dummies book out there. And even if they were, it couldn't cover every topic you would need to cover. You will make mistakes. You need to try to forge, good communication with your child and create bonding experiences and things like that. But it's just it's in constant evolution, constant. When my son was younger, there was one thing, there was the dominion. I'm your mama, just kind of do what I say. Then when he entered puberty and he got taller than me and his voice got deep and he was looking down on me, then it was like, okay, now I need to figure some stuff out. And in the absence of a father or a male figure, I didn't think I had enough to pour into him because I didn't have the male experience. So I had to start reaching out to people. I had to pray that I could trust the people that I were reaching out,
Absolutely.
out to, so that they could pour into my child in the manner in which he needed so that he could become a man who would think before acting and who would be responsible and be respectful and be reliable. And so I knew I couldn't give that to him alone. And, it just talks about how I had to really pivot mentally and think, okay, you can't do this by yourself. You need to get help. You're going to be a single parent, but you're going to be a single parent who reaches out to people and who talks about your experiences, who is willing to get in a single parent forum, any platform, anywhere, and talk to other people and share experiences so that you don't feel like you're such a failure in this endeavor.
Absolutely. And, I like how you were transparent, and one thing that you did say, in having that experience as a single parent, because, in my lifehood, of course, I've known individuals who have had to become a single parent and both parents give up, and the child end up subsequently being raised by Big Mama or, TT, but
someone else.
Yeah, but you were like, given that situation, giving up is not an option,
Right.
and you took on your responsibility. And like you said, there were some hurdles that you came across. And you were transparent in those hurdles that you came across. Like you said, a lot of women won't say, I can't raise a man. I had to have that talk with myself. He's a Black man, and there are certain experiences that I can't speak to.
I can't prepare for, I can't relate to. I just don't have the fundamental knowledge of what that experience is like. Then you have to figure out, okay, who do you align yourself with to help share those experiences and prepare him for this transition into young adulthood and then into adulthood. So I just had to, really seek counsel about, okay, what am I going to do about this? Luckily, I have a brother and I was able to talk to him about it. And he is a phenomenal example of what a husband and a father should be. But I didn't see many of those growing up.
Mhm.
And so figuring out, okay, who am I going to bring him around and allow him to see so that he can know what type of man I want him to be? Does that mean that's going to be the type of man he will become? No. But just yesterday, I watched him. I took him to the store. He wanted to get some drinks. I watched him stand for like 2 minutes waiting on a woman that he saw get out of her car and hold the door open. And then I saw the men in the store just look at him, and then they came and looked at me and they nodded their head. It's like he's been opening doors since he was 3, when the door was still too heavy, because I set that expectation. But there are other things that are going to happen when mommy's not going to be around and mommy's not going to be privy to. And I hope that just by setting little examples, that when that time comes, he has the moral compass to make the best decisions. And that's
Mhm.
what, I fear the most, is that outside forces, friendships, peer pressure, and all of those things could kind of make him make a right turn when he should have made a left turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, for our children, when it does come to the peer pressure, when it comes to the bullying, and that's the thing, is like, what are these parents doing in these households to prepare their children, to go out and be able to be that leader, and not
Right,
a follower,
right.
like I said, this, this age of children that we have now, um, it kind of hurts my heart.
Yeah, I really pray for Generation Z. I
Mhm.
think that they're an entitled group of children. I'm not sure if it's because each generation tries to do more for their children than they had. And in doing that, you set them up for that entitlement where they don't realize they have to work for things.
Right.
That's one of the things that I've written in an article about, that I think maybe some of it is our fault as parents from generation to generation. But it's very concerning. And the point about being a leader or follower, we kind of instilled that in my son when he was really young, but not just saying, are you a leader or follower? Asking him, what does leadership mean? What does
Mhm.
it mean to you? Tell me what a leader does, and that's how we were able to get that concept into him. But for me, having navigated through so many relationships, as you know, in the Fraud Chronicles, one of the biggest things for me is, how is my son going to resolve conflict?
Yeah.
How is he going to communicate with women? Is he going to have a fundamental respect for them for being creators of life? You know, what can I do to mitigate the possibility of him becoming a chauvinist or misogynist or any of that kind of stuff that I've encountered, a narcissist, any of that? What can I do personally to mitigate the possibility of that happening? And that
Absolutely.
can be very overwhelming, Tangela,
Yeah.
to be honest. It can be very overwhelming.
But I mean, that's what it's all about, to be that type of parent, and to have that kind of, you know, fortitude, to have that kind of conversation with yourself, you know, and everything. And like I say, in this chapter, I like how um, you summed it up, and you also uh, gave advice, that it suggested, to look at support groups, you know.
Yeah, I definitely did it when um my ex-husband first left. It was totally expected. It was not unexpected at all. But first I had to deal with my son's emotions about it, right? And then I had already dealt with my emotions, but then I had to deal with, okay, Now, how are we going to live? You know, on a day-to-day basis, how are we going to live? And it became challenging to me that we didn't always get it right. And I often found myself frustrated. He was often frustrated. We were not communicating in healthy ways. He didn't feel loved and heard and respected. And that just troubled me. So that's what really propelled me to join a support group, because I was like, okay, I'm doing this all wrong. And then I learned that everybody felt like they were doing it all wrong. And I was like, oh, okay, thank goodness, because I just thought I'm a failure in this regard. You can be success in all kind of other ways, but this is one area where you don't want to fail.
Absolutely. 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 Well, I again thank you so much for jumping on with me. I do want to try and get some questions in here, like I said, for those who are out there listening to this broadcast. And if you have some questions, please put them in the comment section. And as we go along, I will ask Author Nicole those questions that you are putting in the comment section. But moving right along, again, thank you.
Yeah, we
Now.
rarely get questions. You know, I think people might be watching, but they're very hesitant to ask a question. They need to understand, though, that I'm a very direct communicator. You can pretty much ask me anything and you're going to get the truth from me,
Yeah,
whether it's good, bad, or ugly. So I would appreciate at least one question.
absolutely. Um, but what I would like to ask you in being a part of this anthology, if you had to say there was one piece in here, I'm not going to say is your favorite, but stood out to you the most.
So yes, I think I do have one that stood out to me the most because of the stigma of therapy. The section on mental health,
Okay.
the chapter on mental health. Um, I only wish that people would get help. It's chapter 2, addressing the stigma and benefits of therapy.
Okay.
I only wish people would realize, number one, that they may need help in dealing with something. And then with number 2, go and get the help they need. Because you have the young Nicole who, had she gotten the help she needed early on, would not have made the same types of decisions that the adult Nicole made. And even if it's someone in your family that you can talk to, or someone, you know I hear all kinds of reasons. Oh, it's expensive, and insurance, and this and this and this and this and this. But if you have anyone in your life who you respect as a mentor, as a positive influence, as a role model as to what you would want to be when you grow up, these are people that you can talk to when you're going through things. And I believe that, like the bullying culture and the suicide culture for this current generation,
Absolutely.
we could do something about that if we started talking and stop making people think something is wrong with them for addressing their mental health issues.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. Absolutely. And I just think, um, just in the different conversations that I've had, I definitely agree that as a people, none of us were ready, number one, for COVID, but we were not built for that type of situation with the isolation.
Social isolation, right?
And even though you may have thought that, just me being transparent here, you were handling it, I mean, to go for a lot and to say, that you're a sociable person, because I consider myself a very sociable person. but to say that you cannot communicate, you cannot socialize. You have to stay away from your friends and your family and your loved ones, and then you have to try other ways.
Exactly. Yeah. When
You're isolated,
when we, yeah, when I'm thinking, you're making me think about something there. I have a core group of friends. There are about maybe 8 to 10 of us. When that happened, we hung out with each other regularly. We had to get real innovative about how we were going to keep the connectivity and stuff going. And we started doing Zooms every Friday. We
right.
could see each other. We could laugh with each other. We get a glass of wine or whatever and talk. And although that's not the same as human engagement, face-to-face engagement, you are correct. Nothing prepared us for that level and that length of social isolation.
Exactly. And it affected a lot of us,
Right.
in not really realizing, that this is affecting me, and for me, um, I know how it affected me. You
Right.
but like you say, it's a matter of taking that step back, taking that step back and doing the necessary work, doing the work to get yourself back on track, you know.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like I say, I love this book. I definitely would encourage uh, any book lover who is out there that's looking for their next great read, to pick it up. Definitely pick it up. Um, I was looking for some questions. I just have one young lady in the chat, uh, Patrina, and she just said, "Good evening, ladies," but she didn't put a question. So, good evening, Patrina.
Good evening.
But again, if anybody has any questions, definitely put them in the comment section before we wrap it up. I'd like to at least get one question for the author, but waiting on someone to, jump in and ask a question. I want to ask you about any future projects, and also when it comes to this book, let them know where they can get the book, but what all do you have going on going forward?
Okay, so this book is available on Amazon. My first book, The Fraud Chronicles, The Aftermath of Sustained Silence, is also available on Amazon. There is another project that Dr. Clues is coordinating with men. And when that happens, I will make sure to let you know, because you know how hesitant men are to talk about these types of things. And I think that would really help people, including women, in ways that they can better understand men and some of the things they deal with.
Okay.
As for my projects, I am in the process right now of ghostwriting 2 books. I have already written 2 personal books, and I'm trying to kind of balance what I'm doing to determine whether it's a good time or not to go ahead and proceed with those.
Okay.
I am just trying to figure out whether I want to continue with fiction or nonfiction.
Okay.
So, a lot of people who write fiction, some of our mutually agreed upon favorite authors, they write books, but they're about things that they know about experiences they've had or they've seen in their family, but they write it as fiction. I'm
Right.
trying to decide about that and see if I want to just move in that direction and do something like that. But right now, I'm just having fun writing. I'm journaling a lot,
Okay.
and I'm observing people in journals and writing notes about what their body language and what I think it means about those people, because I'm trying to learn to be more in tune with people
Right.
and more kind and considerate. I think kindness is kind of, compassion is kind of just going away in our society. So, I'm doing little things like that right now for myself and just trying to relax a little bit now that it seems like we're getting away from all of these COVID cases.
Absolutely. I'm big on self care. Big on
Yes,
self care.
yes, Yes, absolutely.
You know, so but again, I definitely enjoyed you. One last question that I always ask authors before we end, in giving advice, and I've asked you this before, but I'm going to ask you again, to anyone who is an aspiring author, um, what would that advice be?
Believe in yourself. Just start writing with no direction. And then over time, you will hone your craft, but believe in yourself. Everyone has a story. Start by telling that story, cultivate your craft, and then align yourself with like-minded people and encouraging people who can give you constructive advice about your work to propel you to where you want to be.
Okay, great, great. Well, I guess that about wraps it up.
Okay.
I enjoyed speaking with you. Great dialogue, great conversation. Until next time, because I will definitely be in support. So we'll definitely stay connected. But again, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being so gracious to come onto my platform and share with our book lovers. And like I say, if you are on and you have questions, you can still put them in the comment section. I'll make sure that she gets them, or even if you're listening to the replay.
All right, I'll answer questions at any point. I think there's a hesitation, as I said before, but I'm always available to you. You have my phone, you text, you call, you whatever you need to do.
Yes.
Anytime you need me for anything, it's
Yes.
my pleasure to always help you. And I appreciate your consistent support of all of my endeavors and of this collaborative project as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, nobody else has anything else to say. As always, happy Thursday and happy reading. Actually, happy reading, and you guys be blessed. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I think we have stopped on